Ooh, welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and exciting video today. One that definitely had impacts on my rankings of each of these players. Not gonna spoil in what direction, but I think it was a good thing that I did this video because it opened up my eyes to and some errors that I had made in my original rankings. Real quick here, up on the website, www.theffforge.com, you can find, let me go to the front page here. It's beautiful, I know, thank you very much. And you go down a little ways, 2024 printable draft sheet. You click on that, that's going to bring you right here to this bar sheet, which you can print off. You can also find all my rankings for each of my positions up here. You click on rankings, and once that loads up, here you go. And these are getting updated very regularly. You can also print these off if you wish. But this is meant for draft day to keep things simple for you. I like having those other sheets too, especially because the ranking sheets are my rankings 100%. This draft sheet is built to help you in the draft, including the tiers. But first of all, this is the most recent ADPs combined, averaged with my ranking in order to build a little bit. So if there's guys that I'm a little bit too high on, whatever, compared to ADP, that pushes them back, so we're not reaching for them too much. And if there's guys that I'm a little bit low on, at least they're going to pop up a little bit earlier, give you a chance to see them. And of course, with any draft sheet, I recommend you go through this ahead of time. Find out the players that you really like, that are lower than you would like them to be. Give them little stars so you know to go, possibly draft them earlier than what the draft board is showing for you, for your personal tastes. There you go. That is available for you to use. Additionally, every Thursday night, going live 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and in not too long of a time. I don't even know when this will be released. But the week leading up to Labor Day weekend, that holiday weekend, the week prior to that, and probably over that weekend, I will be here live up on YouTube a lot. Every day should be available for you to come join us doing mock drafts live, 8 p.m. Eastern on Thursday nights, but then it'll be every night. I'll put little I'll let you know the schedule as it's happening throughout the week, but just look for me throughout that week and come in and join with some sleeper free practice before you actually get into your drafts. Without further ado, though, let's look at this Miami Dolphins backfield, baby. And we're going to be looking at Achane, ADP 21, running back 9, Raheem Mostert, ADP 92, running back 27. Are these guys worth where they're being taken in the draft, or should they be going higher, or should they be going later? Look, first we got to see what are some changes from last year coming into this year, backfield changes. Well, Raheem Mostert is the undoubted starter again this year, so no change there from everything that's coming out of the talking heads at Miami training camp. That continues to be Raheem Mostert. That is not going to be Achane taking over as the RB1. The Fins also traded up for a running back in the third round of the draft this year, running back Jalen Wright. This is looking into the future, I'm sure, but could he eat into the work this year? I just had a great first game in the preseason, to be expected. I think highly of him. As for the projections that we are going to be doing here, looking at when these two were healthy together on the field to give us our best sample size, we get an 8-game sample size, not the best, not the worst, something to work off of, give us a decent idea going forward. And these are the weeks that it ended up being. So this took a little while to put this one together, having to cherry pick through each of the week's stats. But the stats that I came through during those weeks for Achane were 10.4 carries per game. Now, you've caught a few times when I've talked about Achane, I think, being ranked too high. I've talked about him getting like 7 touches. That's not even including the receptions per game. I was low on that. I was not giving him enough credit for what his actual usage was. Yards per rushing attempt, insane. 7.8 yards per carry. 6.6 is the true yards per carry according to a player profiler website. I don't know exactly how they determine those true yards per carry numbers, but I do like them, and I am going to end up using that number at least a little bit throughout these projections. So I just want to kind of give you a heads up on that number, what that number is, and the reason I'm using it is because 7.8 yards per carry is absolutely insane. 6.6 yards per carry is insane, and good enough. In terms of receptions per game, 3 throughout that time period. Yards per reception was 7. Touchdowns, removing the Denver game, so over a 7-game sample size, was 0.7 touchdowns per game, because that Denver game was insane, and I believe each of these two running backs, both of them, I think, had like 4 each in that game. 8 touchdowns total rushing. Something insane. Maybe it was 3 each, but something ridiculous. So let's come to some fantasy points here for Devon Achane. We take our 10.4 yards per carry times our 7.8 yards per carry, or maybe our 6.6, and we come to 8.1 fantasy points per game, or our 6.9 fantasy points per game, depending on which number we use. Pretty big difference there, 1.2. You think it's not big, but on average per game, that's a pretty big difference. 3 receptions, 1.5 fantasy points, if it's half PPR is what we're thinking here. And multiply that by the yards per reception, you get 2.2 fantasy points, 21.9 yards that would have been. And the touchdowns on average would have been 4.2 fantasy points per game from the touchdowns. On average, that comes to 16 fantasy points, or 14.8 if we use that 6.6 number. That means that in 2023, that 14.8 to 16 fantasy points per game would have brought us anywhere from the RB8 to the RB5, depending on, once again, where you get those rushing numbers from. On average per game, remember, ADP 21, running back 9. So that's actually higher than his ADP where he's going there as running back 9 for Devon Achane. Now let's look at Raheem Mostert. And by the way, a lot of people have injury concerns for Raheem Mostert because he was injury prone for a while. But last year was his second year in a row of playing 15 plus games, 2 healthy years in a row. So obviously he's due. But just want to point that out. He's also a year older. He's like 31. I don't remember if I bring that up somewhere on here, but I should. So carries per game, 14.75. You can see all of the stats there. 2.4 receptions, 4.8 yards per carry, which is a really good number. And remember, we use 6.6 for Achane, so there's reason to believe that Achane's numbers could be a little bit high, even with the projections here. And for the touchdowns, removing the Denver game, 1 touchdown per game. So once again, very good number. I just did the Detroit backfield video. Both of these backfields insane for those touchdown numbers. Now, Raheem Mostert, we run the fantasy point game, and he came to 16 fantasy points. Everything worked out the same. We know that already is running back 5 from 2023 on average fantasy points per game. So he's going as the running back 27. Last year, the running back 2. With him and Devon Achane on the field, the running back 5 via average fantasy points per game. And you can get him all the way back as the running back 27. Now, let's be a little bit more conservative here. What if Jalen Wright takes on a significant amount of work? Thinking 20%, but what if it's 20%? What if it's 10% from each of them? I believe I'm going to use the 20% from both of them. We take 16 fantasy points times, no, I did 10%. That's, I did 10% from each, my bad. I read this wrong. So what if he takes 20% of the work, and what we'll do is we'll just reduce each of Achane and Mostert by 10% for their numbers. Both of them came to 16 fantasy points in one situation, so 90% of that would be 14.4 fantasy points, or the running back 11 in 2023 via average fantasy points per game. Achane, if we were to reduce his average yards per carry, which I think is a very normal thing that we should be expecting, still to a really high number at 6.6, take 90% of that number, brings us to 13.3 fantasy points per game, or the RB17 in average fantasy points per game in 2023. So you can see much, much later, if we were to further that floor and we give him a 5 yards per carry number, still a strong but normalized number in average yards per carry, that would bring us all the way down to 11.8 fantasy points per game. If Achane just came to earth in terms of still efficient, still highly efficient, just not insanely efficient, that'd be a running back 22 based on this new usage. So floor for Mostert, if we do something similar to him, take down those touchdowns by a little ways, bring them down to the Devon Achane number, 0.75. That'd be a 12.8 fantasy points per game, or the running back 17. So, a lot of numbers there. Let's not forget as well, Mostert, he's 32 years old. You got, keep in mind that the mileage is not insane. I want to see if I wrote that down, exactly what his mileage is. I didn't keep a note there, but the mileage for him is not insane because he didn't really get his career started till like age 27, 28-ish, maybe it's 26 even. A couple of injuries in there as well. So a little bit of wear and tear, but also not the worst mileage for a 32-year-old especially. And I think that that's important. Age does matter for running backs, but a lot of the reason that age matters is because of the wear and tear that running backs take from so much usage. And his usage is lower than your average 32-year-old. So I think that there's a chance that he should be another successful year here, and he's not having to carry the entire workload. He's got some guys to help him out. For Achane, coming into his second year. So can we expect some improvement? He was so highly efficient. Obviously, I did not project improvement off of those types of numbers. But coming into his second year, more usage could be a thing. Could he, as the year goes along, take over the lead rushing role? Definite possibility. Upside for him is more so than Mostert in terms of this and how this goes. But both of them are injury-concerned guys. They have like the same rough percentage chance of injury according to like DraftSharks.com. Injury expectation thing. So that is a concern. That is part of the reason that they drafted Jalen Wright. That's part of the reason why Jalen Wright is a very valuable backup, because both of these guys have injury concerns. Now, all in all, when we take the ceiling to the floor here for Achane, we came up with the running back 5 to a running back 22 range, and for Mostert, we came up with that running back 5 to a running back 17 range. So at that point in time, I did a rankings update. I had Achane all the way at running back 20 because I was concerned about his consistency. Once again, going back, I told you, I was thinking like for some reason I had 7-ish, 8 touches in mind for him. And that's just not enough for a game. But talking 13 touches for a guy who is highly efficient in this offense, okay, I got a little bit more faith in that. So I'm really happy that I readjusted. I went through this exercise because it exposed something that I was improperly ranking somebody based on. For Mostert too, this is something where I knew I had him too low at running back 29, but this really gave me the faith to really push him up a little ways more. In my rankings too, I mean, he's much higher, but just doing this exercise again and seeing even where that floor is, like, okay, I'm still kind of picking in the middle of that floor. Near his floor for my expected range here for Mostert, getting him at running back 15. So that's where I ended up moving him to. And for Jalen Wright, I moved him up a little ways. Just, he's amongst the riffraff there at the back end, but moved him up in terms of the backup kinds of guys that I want. Just because I was thinking, 2 injuries in front of him, what are the expectations? But even if there's 1 in front of him, he might just pick up that workload, especially if it's Achane that goes down. If Mostert goes down, Achane might end up giving like 70% and Jalen Wright 30%, depending on how much they trust Jalen Wright this year. But for Jalen Wright there, just a little bit more value thinking about the actual situation there. Only one of them needs to go down really, and he's probably has a valuable role as like a flex kind of guy, at least for you. And if both of them go down, which is very possible, Jalen Wright would be in a significantly great position. And I have a lot of trust in Jalen Wright. I think he's a fantastic running back pickup for them. So that is it for the video. Thank you very, very much for tuning on in. Let me know in the comments what you agreed with, what you didn't disagree with. Let me know who you would like to see me do next, and I will try to get to them. I talked a little bit, if you missed it, in the Detroit backfield video about Mike Evans. Just gave my quick thoughts because somebody had requested Mike Evans. I don't think I'm going to end up getting to that video. So the basic summary of it is he is who he's been, and I don't have too many reasons to not think that he won't be who he's been in previous years for so long. A little bit of concern with the new offensive scheme and new offensive coordinator, I should say, scheme, and his age are just, some factors to keep in mind, but for the most part, I think baked into his ADP. So there we go. That is it. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. Take care. I'll see you soon.